In this beginner tutorial, you're going to learn to build your very own kill streaks with magic and obliterate anything around you. And more specifically, you're going to track kills, and when you get enough kills, you're going to be able to activate your kill streak and unleash the power of the gods upon all those players around you and destroy them in 1 second. Let's get started. Go ahead and create a brand new project in UEFN. And what we're going to do, we're going to keep this straightforward, okay? We need a VFX spawner to show the cool VFX. We need to import a VFX. Go find one that you like. And then we're going to play a sound effect, and we're going to have a damage volume, and put them all together with a button device to create this really cool magical spell. So, what I have here in my project is I went and found on the Unreal Marketplace a Niagara particle system, okay? One that I like, and I'll show you here. So it touches the ground and explodes and looks really cool. I like it, I like it, I like it. So, excellent, excellent. And I'm gonna get rid of player 2 for right now just to make this simpler on us. And then what I'm going to do is add my devices first. So I'm gonna go to Fortnite, devices, and I'm going to add a damage volume, and then I'm going to add a VFX spawner, and then I'm going to add a audio player. I think that's what it's called. And then we're gonna need a button device. Shigala boom, no big deal. And lastly, what I always have in all of my projects is a device mover. So what I'm going to do is go into my project folder, and I'm going to create a new blueprint class of type building prop, and I'm going to call this mover BP. It's an empty object for moving devices. I will double click this, and I will go to editor only static mesh component, and on the right hand side for static mesh, I'm going to click the cube. I'm then going to click it and press R to scale and make it a little bit smaller. I like being able to see my mover object in the editor. Compile and save. So now I'm going to drag my mover BP there. You can see that square. And on the right hand side over here, I'm going to right click the top, create a new folder, and call it game so I can manage all of these objects. And my mover device here, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go to move to game. Then if I scroll up, I'll see it there. I'm going to set all of its position to 0. And all of these objects, I'm going to do that in just a moment. Now, for the audio player and the button and the damage volume, I'm going to right click. Here's the important part. We're not going to move to this time. We're going to attach to our mover BP. And I need to find the VFX spawner, right click, and attach to mover BP. Because currently you can't move devices in and of themselves in code or any other way. But if you attach them to a prop, you can. Most of them anyway. And then I'm going to make sure on all of these objects that they're zeroed out. This is really important because if you change the translation in code, the position in code of these objects in one way or another, on props anyway, or rather what's going to happen is they're going to keep the distance to their attached parent. That's what I'm trying to say. So you need to zero them out. They need to be all together in the same spot because we're going to move the mover, but these things right here need to be with the mover. Otherwise, they're going to be offset and your game won't work as you expect. So that's it. Video's done. Just kidding. We're going to have to write some code. So what I'm going to do is go to Verse Explorer. I'm going to right click, add new verse file to project, and we're going to call this Magic Dominator. Call it whatever you want. I really don't care. Okay, and I'm going to click Verse to open up Visual Studio Code. Okay, let's think about what we want to do. Whenever I shoot and eliminate another player, I want to keep track of that. I know I can subscribe to player elimination events. We got to do that. Okay, then I need to do some math, right, to track kill streaks. Some simple variables. If we get 3, then we will allow the kill streak to be enabled. Now, the button itself, you know, in Fortnite, when you press the activate button on random objects in Fortnite, it lets you activate things. That's what we're going to use. We just need to make sure that that's around the player when it needs to be with the proper message and things like that. And we'll go in and change some of those settings on those devices soon, but not just yet. And then so I know that we need to do that. And then we need to spawn the effect. We need to enable the damage. So when the effect explodes, okay, I also want the damage volume to activate and destroy anything in that area during that time. And then I want to turn those off as well. And then when the kill streak's over, or rather we've used the kill streak, we can disable that button until the next one. Maybe you do another kill streak with an even more powerful spell. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to do it all in code here. We're not going to write it out fully. I'm just going to show you some things that I did to make this work. And you have this script available for you. And we'll talk about what's happening in the code. So first things first is one thing that's really important when working with your games, and you need to do this all the time. Start doing this now, is you need to start extracting all of those devices and logic that you need for a specific purpose into their own classes. Because what we don't want to do is manage 15 players and 15 devices in here in our main file. It's going to go insane. We're going to have lots of bugs and problems. And to show you what I mean is we're going to create a new class here called RPG player == class like so. And what I'm going to do with this new class is put all of our @editables, all right? Specifically, the ones that I already talked about. So here I'm going to paste in these editables like so, okay? This is our VFX spawner, our damage device, our device mover, our superpower button, and our sound effect player. Not putting them here because what if you have 10 players? Are you going to copy and paste this 10 times? I don't think so. Absolutely ridiculous. And what this allows us to do then is in our main code file here, in our Magic Dominator, our game manager, we can actually keep a reference to the list of those RPG players. So that's the class I'm naming it, RPG player. All right, I forgot to mention that. So here in our main class that we're going to drag onto the screen, okay, I'm going to say @editable var RPG players of type array, RPG player = array. All right, so I'm making an array of the new class. And the reason why it's yelling at me is because the editable attribute is not supported for data definitions of this type. If I want to make these show up on the UEFN editor, all I have to do is add a specifier or an effect on here called concrete. Not concrete like on the ground outside, but concrete. Maybe they're the same thing, okay? So @editable, got that on here, okay. And if we save our file, those squigglies go away. How very nice. What this means is this will now show up in our editor. And if you don't believe me, let's go to our editor, build verse code, and we need to grab our Magic Dominator. This is our game manager. And before I do anything else on the right-hand side, I'm going to select it, press F2, and rename it to Game Manager. I do this for all of my games. And I'm going to drag this into the game folder, right? Or I'll go to move to game. Dragging didn't work. Okay. Game Manager. And look over here on the right-hand side, RPG players. Check this out. So now, if you have 10 spawners in your game, let's say it's a 10-player game, all you have to do is go over here to your mover BP, select all of these, and duplicate them 10 times, and then you just drag them into your game manager. So much easier than what I've seen some other people doing where they're literally copying and pasting like 10 different things inside their code. Very, very bad. Lots of bugs will come that way. So for VFX spawner, select VFX spawner, damage device, damage volume, device mover, mover BP, super button, and then sound effects player, audio player. Now, I would probably rename some of these to make them more specific, like maybe player 1, player 2, and then add the name of it. because when you have like 10 players, it's going to get confusing. But that's good enough for now. So it allowed us to drag those things onto the screen. I'm not going to run the game yet, though, because it's really not going to do anything. We don't have any logic yet. So back in our code, what I want to do is those other things that we talked about. Initialize some of these buttons, the damage, the kill streak, things like that. So what we're going to do is create a kill streak. So kill streak int equals 0. And even though we're not going to use it in this game, I'll also show you how to track your total kills. I get that question a lot. How do you track your own kills? Yes, you can use some of the built-in devices for this, but having everything in one place in your code is really nice. Just saying, you don't have to listen for a bunch of stuff. It's really nice. So kill streak and total kills, great. Now we need to initialize some of the things that we're going to do when we're setting up our game here, because we don't want all of these things to just work right out of the gate. So I'm going to create an initializer function or method, void equals, and what we're going to do in here is just disable our devices. So we're going to disable the spawner device, the damage device. We'll disable our super button, right? Another thing we need to do is listen for the button when it's activated. Well, so when a player actually presses it. So interacted with event on our super button, on super button activated is a function I'm going to create right now. And so what I'm going to do is implement that function here on super button activated. I'll put a block statement in here to make the squiggly go away. So when the button's activated, what do we want to do? Well, we want to make sure that we use the super. We make the actual sound effects and things go on. And so I'll probably create another function here called use super. And again, you don't have to follow along here. I'm not going in depth on this. You just need to copy this code and look at it later if you like. Say void equals. And what we're going to do is, enable our... But I'm showing you some code because I want you to understand what's going on here. So we want to enable the VFX spawner. Also, it's probably important that we store the player somewhere up here so we can do things with the player. So I'm going to say var player, and we're going to need to make this an optional because we don't have the player readily available right out of the gate. And otherwise, I would have used a struct here. But currently, editable devices don't work in structs. It's a bug with Epic, officially confirmed as of 24.10. So we're going to use a class here. Therefore, we have to initialize this with a default value and make it an optional, which is what I'm doing there. And then back in our use super down here, so we want to enable the VFX. We want to play our sound effect, which I have not dragged into the project yet. Let's go ahead and right here. So play a sound effect, and then we want to turn on the damaged volume, right? Enable that. How long do we want the damage to last for? I'm gonna say 3 seconds. That's like your spell, like, casting for 3 seconds. If you're doing a projectile, it might be different, but our spell is gonna be 3 seconds. And then lastly, as soon as we end that spell, we're going to disable the damage device and the VFX spawner, okay? And then one more thing is, in this callback function, this is what's going to be called when someone touches the button or activates it. Okay, this is where we want to use our super. So I'm going to say spawn, and we use the spawn keyword because we have the sleep in there and we don't want to hold up the game, so we're going to spawn it on a new thread. But before we do anything, I don't want other players to be able to activate our button. Does that make sense? I want to make sure that the player who's activating the button is the one that actually should be activating the button. So if another player comes and touches your button, okay, we want to make sure that they can't activate your special, although it would kill the other player, which would be kind of funny. We could do that here in the editor. With our, let's say, damage volume here, for instance, or where we could set the team on the damage volume, and we can also set the team index here on the button itself. If you do set these indexes, which I may do just for this demo, just know you're going to have to manage the indexes for all the teams and who can activate what. So I'm trying to circumvent that by just in code seeing if it's the correct player. Okay, so on super button activated, we're going to use the super, which is right here. Now up here in our initializer, a few more things that we want to do is we want to make sure that we're listening for elimination events. Okay, so I'm going to paste in some more code here. And what we're going to do is basically grab our agent and our fort character from our player, and then we are going to make sure that we're listening for the elimination events so we can know if we're the one that got the elimination or if it's somebody else. All right, so a couple of things here. When we initialize our function here, I want to pass in the player from our game manager. This may be totally confusing to you. That's okay. I just want to show you what's happening under the hood here. I'm going to pass in this player from the game manager later on. And then we need an on-player eliminated function. So I'm going to copy that over here. So this is the function that is going to be called whenever a player's eliminated. It wants me to import fortnite.com/game. So I'll do that here. Okay, and on player eliminated, we're going to see who the eliminating character is, which character actually did the elimination. If it's the same as me, my player, we're going to increase total kills by 1, and we're going to set the kill streak to +=1. All right, now if the eliminated character is me, kill streak goes back to 0. Okay, now this will be called whenever hundreds of players are eliminated. It's just going to be called a bunch of times. I wish we could just listen for our own player or the players that matter, but this is multiplayer, so we're handling it for everyone, so we have to make sure we do these checks here, okay? You'll also notice that there's a check kill streak function, which I need to create. This is one that I created here. This one's pretty simple. Tab this back here. If kill streak equals 3, enable the super button. All right, pretty simple. Now, you'll see this move devices function has a squiggly over here. We need to keep all these objects with the player all the time. Now, there is some more fancy code I could write to just teleport it once whenever the kill streak's ready, and then we move the devices. But it was more code, and I just want to keep this simple. So what we're going to do is we're going to move the devices, or rather move the mover blueprint prop, the creative prop, with this move devices function. All right, I'm going to go to view word wrap on. Okay, so all we're going to do here is constantly update that mover object that we attached everything to. We're constantly going to keep it on the player. So when the effect turns on, all right, the damage is right where we are, and then the button is right where we are as well. Pretty cool stuff. This is looking good here. We've got our move devices, kill streak, use super. Excellent, excellent. So now, how do we actually initialize all of these things? Well, we've got this really cool array we created, and we already have one player in it, which is awesome. And so what I'm going to do is grab all the players in the game in onBegin, get play space dot get players, like so. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a for loop through all of these players, and we're grabbing the index. Okay, I need that index, and I'll show you why I need it. I'm going to paste here the code I wrote for if RPG player. So we're going to grab the RPG player from this array. Right now we only have one in there, remember? And we're going to use the same index from all players, and then we're going to grab the player object from all players. Okay, so the idea is that the same amount of players that are in our array for RPG players are in the game. Now that might not be the case. You might have 3 players that are actually in the game, but you might have a 10-player game with 10 slots, which means 7 are available still. So the good news is, though, we would never get to 7. It would just do 0, 1, 2 for 1, 2, and 3. Okay? So now what I'm doing is I'm creating a class called RPG Player, or rather I'm grabbing the existing RPG Player and I'm calling initialize, which in turn is initializing everything and making it do all of this really cool stuff. So I'm going to save it. And again, if you're crying that this is so confusing, hard, I get it. I understand. Look at the code. You can join my Discord channel and I'll work with you through it. The most important thing here is I'm showing you how you can do this really cool feature, and you have all the tools available at your hands, including my code. You can just copy and paste it. So here's our mover blueprint. First things first is our audio. I'm going to change it to a sound effect I dragged into the project, which was magic spell, very creative. I'll turn the volume up so it sounds cooler. All right, the button, this is important, okay? So activating team, again, you could set this to an index, but you're going to have to manage all of these indexes, and that's fine, because then if you do manage all that code, it won't pop up for other players, which is really nice. That interact text, that's really nice. But right now, if they try to interact with your special, at least it won't do anything, and we'll keep it simple. So I'll leave the sound on. Interaction text, let's say activate super. All right. Invert team selection, I don't mind about that. Times can trigger. I'm going to leave this at 0 here. Enable that game start. So not enabled at game start. Visible during game, no. And here's the important part, interaction radius. You want this big enough to encompass your player. Imagine your little player here is running around and it's always following him, and then he or she activates or wants to activate their super. They need to be able to not have to move. It should just be right around them at all times, okay? Which is pretty cool. So that's going to work there. That looks good. And then on the damage volume, okay, so for now, I'm going to set the team index on this. So, or rather, determines if all teams accept the team index. So yeah, basically, I'm going to say invert team selection, and selected team is going to be team index 1. So anyone who's not team index 1 is going to get hurt. Now, that's just because I'm testing right now, and I'm team index 1. This is not how you're going to make your multiplayer game, because there's lots of teams and different indexes and things like that. Now, you could, but remember, I'm letting you know you have to manage those indexes. Another thing you could do if you want to be lazy, I like to be lazy sometimes, is you could just set the invulnerability property of your fort character. So if you look at your fort character, where's my fort character? Right here. Okay. You can actually set their vulnerability. So what you could do is while your spell is just started being activated, just leave your damage volume on, but first set your invulnerability to invulnerable, and then as soon as your spell's done, make yourself vulnerable again, which is actually kind of cool, because if I'm casting a spell, maybe I should have an invulnerability effect. But that's another thing you could do to make this really easy instead of managing all of this team index craziness, okay? And then we're going to set the damage to something higher, like so. And that's looking really good. So we got this really cool stuff here, and we're good to go. Your project will work like this. However, I want to test this to see if it works right away, and you probably do too. So let's go back in our code real quick, and all I want to do is just make it so the device is immediately visible to me. So this super button.disable, I'm going to comment that out, control /, all right? Because I want to use it right now. I don't want to wait. Okay, so let's make it visible. And then the other one is on super button activated. Instead of disabling it again, let's just turn that off. It's going to use the super. It's going to do its thing here. And it's going to disable these. That looks good. And we should be able to just use it over and over. All right. Back in our game, what I am going to do, because the damage volumes do work on wildlife, I'm gonna add a wildlife device on here just so I can kill some wolves. You know, who likes wolves, you know? I usually kill some pigs, they're ugly. Can I change it to pigs? There we go, let's change it to the boars. Let's kill some boars. I like it. And then let me just double check that I set my VFX correct, which I did not. VFX spawner, custom visual effect, and what was it? AEO Niagara system. Excellent. Now let's go ahead and build and run this and see if I can cast some magical spells and dominate some wild boars. Okay, here we are. Our super's working. Oh, there's the ugly boar. Let's activate. Ah! Yeah, take that, boar. I'm eating well tonight. Okay, so I can just activate this dude. Boom! Kill these boars. Pretty cool. So it's definitely working. This is really cool stuff. You just created your own magical system and exploded stuff, all right? If you have any requests for tutorials, let me know. And if you subscribe, I'll make more.